What is happening, baby? Welcome back to the Huddle Chat Sports Show, presented as always by DanklyfeBrand and the host, myself, yours truly, as always, Dallas Clark, here presenting you the news as we approach draft night. As we record this video, we are just a few hours away from the 2024 NFL Draft. There is a lot of hype, a lot of tantalization in the fans waiting for tonight's draft. This feels like one of the most exciting pre-draft processes we've had in the last few years. And honestly, draft night, I expect at least round one to be an extremely entertaining event to watch this evening. You're looking at all kinds of different action projected to be happening, especially here in this first round. So in this episode, we're going to be discussing a lot of the trade rumors that are going on right now. In the next episode, we're going to be talking some of the draft rumors, some of the teams looking like they're going to draft certain players like they may locked in already. Of course, nothing's official till you hear this sound right here. That sound gets me going. As soon as you know when your team is ready to pick, you hear that draft, that pick is in. And none of the picks are in right now. The Chicago Bears currently on the clock with the first pick in the draft. And speaking of the Chicago Bears, right now they have the number 1 pick in the draft, the number 9 pick in the first round as well. I'm looking at Chicago Bears running back Khalil Herbert as a big potential subject to being traded this evening before the night is done. Whether that involves the Bears moving back from pick 9, because I have heard that the Chicago Bears have moved or are looking to move back from pick 9, especially after picking Caleb Williams with their first pick overall. After making a blockbuster trade to acquire DeAndre Swift, you're looking at Khalil Herbert being almost extra fat on the team that they need to trim off. And for a running back hungry team that could really be in the need for not only a running back but a draft pick as well, could really spend a lot of draft picks, a lot of capital to acquire that 9 pick or Khalil Herbert, if not both of them at the same time. So keep your eyes on the Chicago Bears moving on from Khalil Herbert this evening. That's one that I really think has a lot of merit behind it. Another trade rumor is really not much of a rumor right now. The Cincinnati Bengals have had trade requests coming in left and right on their players. You're looking at wide receiver T. Higgins, and there's been talks of trades for T. Higgins all offseason. He officially requested a trade last night before the draft. You're also looking at defensive end Trey Hendrickson looking to request for a trade as well. However, the Cincinnati Bengals have come out and said they will not be moving on from Trey Hendrickson. There's talks of him even retiring to get out of the Cincinnati Bengals right now. So we're going to be looking on that a lot. But the T. Higgins situation leaves a lot of speculation to be had because there's a lot. I mean, you're looking at this being historically the most heavy wide receiver class in the NFL draft that we've had so far. So wide receivers for T. Higgins, he's really not looking at the best market for wide receivers. Teams aren't going to be as hungry for wide receivers during this year's draft as they normally are. They're projecting 6 wide receivers going in the first round this evening. I don't think T. Higgins is going to get the market that he wants. I think the Cincinnati Bengals need to move on from T. Higgins. He's become a problem at this point, and I don't see him playing the season for the Cincinnati Bengals in a way that makes him seem like he's going to be putting his full effort in. So T. Higgins really has to go from Cincinnati. So I definitely think that they are a big contender to trade up with somebody, add an extra wide receiver to another team, and move up in that draft. That is what I think can definitely happen this evening. Along those same lines, we're looking at wide receiver Brandon Ayuk as well as Deebo Samuel from the San Francisco 49ers have both been in heavy trade talks, with one of them talking to, quote, one of the teams picking in the top 10. That's coming from The Athletic, that quote there. So I'm looking at Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel. I think Brandon Ayuk would have more value as a Colts fan. I'd rather Brandon Ayuk come to the Colts than Deebo Samuel, just purely with age, ceiling left to hit. Deebo Samuel, he had his splash, and Deebo Samuel can still be a decent wide receiver. But as far as spending the capital in a trade, I think Brandon Ayuk would be the more tantalizing target to go after from the San Francisco 49ers wide receiver core, leaving the question of what are the Niners going to do in the draft? Are they going to be one of those teams taking one of these talented first-round projected wide receivers? We will see this evening when we hear that beautiful sound. Another player to be on the lookout for being traded off this evening is going to be Denver Broncos cornerback Patrick Surtain II. You look at him requesting a trade early in the offseason. You look at the Broncos pretty much seeming like they're doing everything they can to move on from Patrick Surtain and move on into the new generation of Broncos country with their new uniforms, their new quarterback, their new Wilson. Looking like the castaway staff over there in Denver right now. However, Denver quarterback Patrick Surtain, he still has some time left on his contract, and the perfect time to get rid of Patrick Surtain is in an evening when we're looking at potentially historically the most offensive players drafted in the first round. Right now, we're looking at 19 players being the most first round offensive players drafted. The over-under, I'm not sure what the actual official over-under is, but for me, I think we're going to see at least 23, the magic 23 Michael Jordan number of offensive players drafted, leaving only 8 players to be drafted from defense. So I think Patrick Surtain, there's teams like the Indianapolis Colts who are hungry for cornerbacks, who may potentially spend that 15th pick and some other capital to get a star cornerback like you can get from the Denver Broncos in Pat Surtain. So keep your eye on the Denver Broncos making those phone calls and see what they do with Pat Surtain. And probably the most interesting and most convoluted trade rumor is going to be Justin Jefferson from the Minnesota Vikings being traded as the Vikings look to rebuild, refresh, and restart completely. You're looking at a division that has Jordan Love, most likely Caleb Williams. You're going to be needing the Minnesota Vikings to have the quarterback of the future. Now, the quarterback of the future will need superstar wide receivers, and you don't get much more superstar wide receiver than Justin Jefferson. However, I do think that the Minnesota Vikings keep Justin Jefferson. I don't see in what world they trade away Justin Jefferson to gamble on one of these top 5 quarterbacks for the potential of completely finding yourself in disarray if you miss on the quarterback or don't get the preferred quarterback that you want. Justin Jefferson is probably the last resort Minnesota would be willing to give up. I think Minnesota would give up the Thunderdome. They'd give up their own stadium to get rid before getting rid of Justin Jefferson. I don't think anybody thinks that the Minnesota Vikings realistically trade Justin Jefferson. However, you really could see that happen tonight. There is the likelihood. Nobody thought that the Tennessee Titans would get rid of A.J. Brown just to turn around and give Calvin Ridley almost the same amount of money, even though he's 5 years older than A.J. Brown was at the time. But we're not here to trash talk the Tennessee Titans or any of those other teams right now. That's going to be saved for other episodes. However, I do think Justin Jefferson stays with the Minnesota Vikings. However, I'm keeping my eyes on the Minnesota Vikings because they're one of the most interesting teams in this evening's draft. That's going to wrap it up for players that are most likely to be traded during the NFL draft, before the NFL draft, during the NFL draft this evening. I definitely see some of these players being moved. Like I said, Justin Jefferson. Some of these players I definitely think are likely to stay, more likely than not. However, there's always going to be some juice going around draft night, so make sure you keep in touch to the Huddle Chat Sports on Twitter. We're going to be keeping you up to date. As soon as we get information from any of our sources, we're going to be posting it out for you on Twitter, so stay up to date. Put the notifications bell on YouTube. We'll have lots of videos coming out as far as fantasy football, draft, rookie information, all the stuff you can handle here over the next few weeks as we prepare for the official start of training camp and the real feel of offseason for the NFL. That's going to do it for me today. And remember, as always, to keep your chin up and that attitude all the way down. I'll see you next time. Peace out.